Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean and Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. I'm a certified health coach, trainer, and author. And this podcast is for middle-aged men and women looking to optimize their health and get their bodies back to what it once was 10 to 15 years ago. I will give you simple, actionable items to get long-term sustainable results. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin. Hope you had a great weekend. Happy Tuesday if you're listening to this on Tuesday, and hopefully you're having some nice weather. Chicago's been beautiful, trying to enjoy this before the winter comes. And hopefully you'll listen to my last interview / debate with Dr. Dom D'Agostino and Jay Feldman. And I've had Dom on before, wanted to get Jay on because they sort of have a different approach regarding low carb versus high carb approaches. And it was great. It was a great debate. They agreed upon a lot, and I definitely recommend listening to it if you're curious to learn a little bit about different approaches. Dr. Dom was definitely geared more towards a clinical keto approach, which he's been implementing for a long time, and Jay's more from the bioenergetic field of eating. So definitely check that out. I'm going to have Jay on in a few weeks, and we're going to do a part 2 to this debate as well. So look out for that. And today I want to touch on, there's been a few studies that have come out recently showing the advantages of early time-restricted eating versus eating, even if you're doing time-restricted eating later in the day. I think for most people, and including myself, when we think of doing some form of intermittent fasting, we think of pushing back breakfast and then having our first meal, let's just say around 11 or noon, and then our second meal maybe, but you could have 3 meals, you could have 2 meals, depending on maybe what your goals are. But either way, maybe your eating window is done around 7 or 8 o'clock. And this is the popular approach that also called like the 16-8, like the lean gains approach. That was like the first one that sort of came about. And I think this is effective. I think what's happening now is just more research and studies coming out. And so I just want to touch on that. The one that I'm going to touch on is a randomized clinical trial that was done in August. And this was comparing early time restricted eating. This was done over, I believe it was done over let me just double check here, 14-week clinical trial. From August of 2018 to April of 2020, and participants were the age of 25 to 75, so quite a wide range of ages. And it was just comparing early time restricted eating between like 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. and comparing that to later time restricted eating. And really, I'll just give you the sort of summary, the high level, just so you can understand, because I think if you have been doing some form of intermittent fasting, let's say your window was between noon and 8, and maybe you feel like you're stuck or you've hit a plateau, this could be something that you could mix in. You don't have to do it every day. And I always tell people there's not a perfect window. I think it's the one that sort of fits best in your schedule and your lifestyle. I mean, obviously eating dinner is an important sort of social interaction for individuals, especially in the United States. And a lot of times, obviously, we're eating with our families. So, you don't have to cut that out. But if you do feel like maybe you want to mix things up and try early time restricted eating, this study showed that there was an overall improvement in blood pressure along with some help with weight loss. So if you are hitting a plateau, maybe give this one a try. This was over a 14-week period, and you don't even need to do it every day, right? You could have some days where you early time restrict. Maybe you eat between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. And then the other times, if it works better for you, then you can push it a little bit later. If you're going to have dinner or you have a work, maybe a work, I don't know, a work venue or work outings, you could do it that way. So really, I think it does come down to your schedule and what fits best. But I wanted to just bring this to your attention because there has been sort of a lot of buzz in the health community regarding these studies that are coming out regarding early time restricted eating. And for the most part, you are more insulin sensitive in the earlier part of the day. than you are in the later part of the day. That's why late night eating does not go well for most people. So this one was 90 participants enrolled, and they looked at, body mass index. It was a mix of male and females. And really the conclusion was that the main is it's more effective for losing weight and improving diastolic blood pressure and mood. That was a third one, which is interesting. Than eating over a window that is later in the day. So that was the main conclusion from this study, which was in the I'll put a link in the show notes for it. It was in the JAMA, and the title is Effectiveness of Early Time Restricted Eating for Weight Loss, Fat Loss, and Cardiometabolic Health in Adults with Obesity. So that's all I wanted to point out today was, there's not a perfect window, but if you could probably eat when it's light out, that's probably the best way to go about things. If you can do that now, now in Chicago, the winter, it's getting darker earlier and earlier. So it's not as easy, especially if you're eating supper at 6 o'clock, it's starting to get dark. But either way, this might be something for you to check out and try on yourself, even if it's for just a few days a week. So that's all I want to touch on today. And I hope you have a great rest of the week, and looking forward to another great interview on Friday. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there, and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangrin.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again, and have a great day.